I'm Julie, and I am the new director of Youth and Family Ministry, and I am honored. Yeah, wait a month from now. I'm still thrilled, and I'm sure I'll be thrilled a month from now, I hope, God willing, to be here. One of the gifts I bring is organization, and most of you were not here this morning to walk me through the shadow side of my characteristics, which is organization. And I was here flipping out because I had all of my things up on the podium and not knowing that there was a black foam pad, and I couldn't see from where I was seated that the things were always here all along. And so I ran everywhere before someone pointed out that everything is as it should be. It's always good to get a reminder. Things aren't always as they seem. Much of what I do in pastoral ministry, I've been involved in this business in education and youth and family ministry for 37 years. I remember for many years I was the youngest one on staff, and now I've got young people that are coming in as teachers and youth ministers that are telling me, gosh, Julie, you've been in youth ministry longer than I've been alive, to which I don't really need to hear. Even the puppy that I picked up yesterday for the office serves two purposes. I've always had several purposes for the things that I have in the office, this being a stuffed animal is one. The first being I like it, and it makes a youth office youth-friendly. The second being a divine purpose, and that when kids are struggling and finding it difficult to talk, girls in particular, it's easier to talk about things if you can hold the bunny. Boys sometimes come in and need to punch the bunny, but the bunny is all-knowing, all-wise, and all-inclusive, so he's here to hold space for us today. Both my... over. He can even do it in his sleep. Both my husband Patrick and I come from traditional Irish Catholic families. Both of us attended Catholic schools. Pat graduated from Rockhurst High School here in Overland Park and received his MBA at Rockhurst University. We need to talk more, obviously. I graduated from 8th grade Catholic school in North St. Louis and walked across the parking lot to where I was in 9th grade in an all-girls Catholic high school. Until the end of the 9th grade year, I went to the public high school, and because my all-girl Catholic high school closed, and I didn't know much about people. I was pretty smart. I did well in school, but when I went to the public school, I didn't know much about people. I knew there were Roman Catholics and everybody else who was potentially going to hell. And so I had to learn about people and beliefs. When I went to my first play audition, I met my first boyfriend, and my boyfriend was Baptist. And he took me to Wednesday night services and Sunday morning services. I got to sing with the Baptist Youth Choir. I was a soloist at the Lutheran Church. I went with my friends to youth groups and the Presbyterian and the Christian, the Mormon. I even had friends who were Pentecostal, and when they prayed, they spoke in tongues. I had friends who went to Saturday services, and I thought that was weird, but it's different, and I really like it, and I want to go there too. It affected profoundly my spirituality. If you were to ask me if I'm Roman Catholic, I would say yes. If you were to ask me if I am Christian, I would say yes. If you were to ask me if I am New Thought, I would say yes. If you were to ask me if I am Unity, I would say yes. My spirituality is like my favorite color. I'm a little rainbow. And that's what we come here. We all come with our divine experiences here. But I am also Irish. And like all of those who have gone before me, who left a legacy, of gathering around the campfires and retelling the stories of the history of my people. I am first and foremost a storyteller. Well, I already told you that when I was in Catholic schools, we all had to go all 9 grades in our uniforms, and we had these ugly blue uniforms with these white blouses, and the only way we could distinguish ourselves was through our knee socks, except on Wednesdays, because on Wednesdays was Campfire Girl Day. And on Campfire Girl Day, I got to wear my red kerchief, and I got to wear my blue vest that had my Native American name printed on the back. It was Algonquin Soanjitaha. And I wouldn't understand the significance of that until many years later. Soanjitaha means strong heart. Well, one day, my Bluebird teacher gathered us all up in the car, and she took us all to some kind of field trip. Sometimes we went to the dairy, and sometimes we went to the art museum. We didn't know where we were always going. I just knew there was an adventure. But on this particular Wednesday, I don't remember where we were going. All I knew was that it was the day after Halloween. Roman Catholics call the day after Halloween November 1st, All Saints' Day. Miss Naumann's uncle had just passed away, and so she gathered us in the car after our field trip and took us to a mausoleum. I'd never been in a mausoleum before. All I can remember is that as we walked through the mausoleum, I heard the slap of my feet against the cold marble floor. And I saw the names of people lined in those cold drawers, and I was terrified my body was going to end up inside one of those drawers. And I couldn't wait to get out of there. I looked down and I tried to be brave and followed everybody else out to the car. It was the day after Halloween, and so we all piled back into the Halloween car again, and we're all singing these Halloween songs, and the girls are singing, the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, and I'm trying to act really brave, so I gathered up all the courage in my little 3rd grade heart, and I said, you guys, something happened in there to me, and I don't know what, but I'm really scared. Can we sing something else? Well, in 3rd graders, like most of you know, I might as well have asked them to sing it again, except louder this time, which they did. Mrs. Naumann dropped me off at my home, and as the sun set and day passed into night, the fear of death began to fill me hard, and I was afraid if I sat down, I was going to die. So I paced from one end of the house to the other, afraid if I sat, I'd die. And my mom and brother were watching a movie. As I said before, it was the day after Halloween, so they were watching a Stephen King movie. And Mom said, Julie, what's wrong? And I told her about the mausoleum. I told her how scary it was, and I was afraid I was going to die. And Mom said, oh, you don't have to be worried about that. Death is a normal part of life. So she and my brother started a story of grave robberies and ghost stories. And I sat down next to them and watched the movie with them, staring at the floor. This time I'm still afraid, and now I'm ashamed of my fear. Everybody got up and they went to bed, but not me. I still paced from one end of the house to the other, terrified to sit down. I couldn't wait for my dad to get home. Sometimes Dad got home at well after midnight. I was never really sure where he was going when I was in 3rd grade. I just knew sometimes he came home really late at night, and there were times I'd hear him talking on the telephone. And on the phone, I'd hear him say to these unknown faces on the other side, you know, you don't have to take a drink again if you don't want to. And he'd disappear into the night. Well, what I didn't know is that I was actually getting this first taste of unity, because right before the TV went off the air late at night, and I know there's people here that remember that. Right before the TV went off the air, there was the national anthem, but before that was the word of the day from Unity Village. And I remember the silent Unity Tower. And I remember the word for that day was peace. And that lasted right until the end of the national anthem, and I started pacing again. Well, Dad finally got through the front door, and he looked at me, and he said, "Bird, what's wrong?" And he called me Bird because on the base of my spine, I've got a seagull birthmark. And he said, "Bird, what's wrong?" And I go, "This time I've learned nothing's wrong." Thank God he didn't believe me. I sat down and poured out my heart about how scary the mausoleum was and what it was like to be surrounded in marble. I was terrified of being stuck inside one of those drawers. And my dad listened and he nodded. And he said, "Yeah, those are scary things. But you don't have to be afraid, because I'm here, and your mother is here, your sisters and brother are here." I asked Dad, "Are you afraid of death?" And Dad said, "Yeah, I'm afraid to die. I don't want to die. But we're safe here because we have our family here together, and God is present at the center of it. There's nothing to be afraid of." Dad walked with me to my bedroom with my two sisters, where my two sisters and I shared a room. He turned on the nightlight, and I remember the silhouette of his shadow as he stood in the doorway waiting for me to go to sleep. And I knew that I didn't have anything to be afraid of, because God and my dad and my mom and my sisters and my brother were with me. Well, many, many years passed. And I remembered that cold, gray day in November as I stood at the foot of my father's grave with my mother. Both of us were immersed in silent grief. And as I stared at the grave, I remember wondering if Dad was still afraid of death. And I wondered if he had ever found the God he so profoundly professed to believe in while he was alive. And then I started to laugh. And my mother said, "I'd like to know what you think is so funny." And as I looked at the grave, I couldn't help but pay attention to the beautiful green lawns that filled that cemetery. And the only grass that was the dead grass on my father's grave. You see, in life, my father spent hours manicuring and clipping and fertilizing and watering the lawn, and no grass would grow. And my brother and sisters and I used to think it was hilarious that our dad was the only dad that could grow dead grass. And here we were, standing at the foot of his grave, and the grass is dead. And I'm reminded again that God has a sense of humor, and that love is something that lasts forever. All Saints' Day took a whole different meaning after that experience. Roman Catholics refer to all of those who have lived and died and through their example shared their faith with others. The communion of saints. The communion of saints are men and women who have left as an example for us, who have stood as role models of faith and witness to the truth that there is something good and holy in all of us. The communion of saints includes Jesus' earthly parents, Saint Mary and Saint Joseph. The communion of saints includes Jesus' disciples, Andrew, Philip, Saint James, and Saint John. The communion of saints includes Saint Peter and Saint Paul. It includes Saint Stephen, the first Christian martyr to sacrifice his faith and to sacrifice his life for the faith that he believed in. I believe the communion of saints does not die with the men and women who have passed away. The communion of saints is a torch that has been shared with all of us and continues in our word and example. The communion of saints is much bigger than one faith or one denomination. The communion of saints includes Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. The communion of saints includes Harvey Milk, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. The communion of saints includes Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. The communion of saints includes Carrie Jenkins, Bud Seaman, Gwen Zero, Andy, and Joanne Wymore. The communion of saints includes my dad. It includes all of those who have shared their life in a holy witness. But it doesn't die with them. It lives in us. And it is our responsibility to share that love and commitment of faith with one another. The communion of saints will include ushers and greeters. It includes the board and our staff. It includes our teachers and prayer chaplains. It includes all of those here today. It includes our musicians. It includes those who work the lights and the sound. It includes those who pray out loud in word and those who join us in sign language. The communion of saints is a responsibility and a torch we carry on in all we who, in all we say, and in all the witness that we share with one another. The communion of saints is shared in our stories, even stories like little boys like Teddy and teachers like Miss Thompson. Miss Thompson was a school teacher who every year would say to her students, "Boys and girls, I love you all the same. I have no favorites." Of course, every teacher has favorites, and on some occasions, sometimes teachers have students they just don't like. Teddy Stallard was a boy that Miss Thompson simply did not like, and for good reason. He didn't seem interested in school. He wore a deadpan blank expression on his face, and his eyes were glassy and unfocused. When she spoke to Teddy, he merely shrugged his shoulders. His clothes were mussed up and his hair was unkempt. He wasn't an attractive boy, and he certainly wasn't likable. Whenever she marked Teddy's papers, she had a perverse pleasure of putting X on the wrong answers. She should have known better. She had Teddy's records, and she knew more about him than she wanted to admit. The records read, 1st grade, Teddy shows promise with his work, but poor home situation. 2nd grade, Teddy could do better. Mother is seriously ill. He receives little help at home. 3rd grade, Teddy is a good boy, but too serious. He is a slow learner. His mother died this year. 4th grade, Teddy is very slow, but well behaved. His father shows no interest. At Christmas, the boys and girls in Miss Thompson's class brought her presents, piled them high on her desk, and crowded around her to watch her open them. Among the presents was one from Teddy Stallard. She was surprised that he brought her a gift at all. Teddy's gift was wrapped in brown paper and held together with masking and Scotch tape. On the paper were written the simple words, "For Miss Thompson, love, Teddy." When she opened Teddy's presents, out fell a gaudy bracelet with half of the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume. The other boys began to giggle and smirk when they saw Teddy's present, but Miss Thompson at least had enough sense to dab some of the perfume on her wrist and to show all of the boys and girls the gaudy little rhinestone bracelet. And she said, "Doesn't this look lovely?" And the boys and girls responded with ooh and ahs. When school was over and the other children had left, Teddy lingered behind. He slowly came over to her desk and said softly, Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mother. And your bracelet looks really pretty on you, too. I'm glad you like my presents." When Teddy left, Miss Thompson got down on her knees and asked God to forgive her. The next day, when the children came to school, they were welcomed by a new teacher. Miss Thompson had become a different person. She was no longer just a teacher. She was now an agent of God, committed to loving her children and doing things for them that would live long after her. She helped all the children, but especially the slow ones, and especially Teddy Stallard. By the end of the school year, Teddy showed dramatic improvement. He caught up with most of the students and was even ahead of some. Once the school year ended, Mrs. Thompson did not hear from Teddy for a long, long time. Then one day, she received a note that read, "Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be the first to know. I will be graduating second in my class. Love, Teddy Stallard." 4 years later, another note came. "Dear Miss Thompson, they told me I will be graduating first in my class. I wanted you to be the first to know. The university has not been easy, but it has been a good 4 years. Love, Teddy Stallard." And 4 years later, Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I am Theodore Stallard, MD. How about that? I'm getting married next month, the 27th to be exact. I want you to sit, please, where my mother would have sat if she were still alive. You are all the family I have now. Dad died last year. Love, Teddy Stallard. Miss Thompson went to that wedding and sat where Teddy's mother would have sat. She deserved to be there. She had done something for Teddy that he will never forget. It is in our words and in our actions and in the lives that we lead, that we share with one another through all our goodness, through all our brokenness, through our communal and individual ups and downs, through our brokenness, and most important, through our stories that connect us and make us whole. We are the torch that will live on for those to come.